Jace stood at the edge of the alien landing zone, holding a rusted scanner in one hand and a half-eaten protein bar in the other. He watched the alien crew unload their fancy tools and high-tech gadgets. None of them looked at him. They didn't need to. He was just the human, the weak one, the outsider who always slowed them down. "Don't break anything this time, Jace," one of them said, laughing with a cold sneer. Another flicked his tail and added, "Better stay out of the ship this time, monkey boy." Jace didn't answer. He just nodded and quietly turned his back. It wasn't worth replying anymore. He'd been with this alien salvage crew for 5 months. In all that time, he'd done the dirty jobs, climbed through the tightest vents, and got the worst food. But no one respected him, not even a little every day. They reminded him that he was the only human left on the team, and that made him worthless in their eyes. The crew had landed on an old forgotten moon, its surface cracked and silent. They were here for a derelict ship buried under centuries of dust and rock. Some said it was a cargo ship. Others whispered it might be a war vessel from ancient times. Either way, it was untouched. That made it valuable, very valuable. As the aliens argued about the best way to cut through the hull, Jace walked away. No one stopped him, no one cared. He followed the scanner's weak signal, which pointed toward a smaller section of the ship, half buried under broken metal beams. The air was thin but still breathable. He crawled through a narrow crack, careful not to trigger any old traps or alarms. Inside, the ship was silent. Dark walls lined with strange symbols surrounded him. The air smelled of rust and old memories. His flashlight flickered across a sealed chamber, the door covered in writing he couldn't read, but his scanner blinked wildly. Something inside was still active. He placed his hand on the door, and to his shock, it hummed beneath his fingers. Then, it opened, smoothly, silently, like it had been waiting for him. The room inside was round, with walls glowing in soft blue light. In the center stood a tall suit of armor, ancient, beautiful, and untouched by time. It floated slightly above the floor, as if weightless. Jace took a step closer, his heart pounding. The armor seemed to whisper to him. Though there was no sound, he reached out, drawn to it by something he couldn't explain. The moment his fingers touched it, the armor surged forward, wrapping around him like water. He gasped, but it wasn't painful. It was warm, almost gentle, like it knew him. The helmet formed over his head, and the chamber filled with soft light. His mind was flooded with images, battles in space, warriors standing tall, alien empires trembling before a single figure in the same armor. That figure was human. Jace fell to his knees, overwhelmed, but the armor held him steady. He could feel strength flowing through his muscles. His vision sharpened, his heart slowed. He felt complete. Outside, the alien crew picked up on the sudden energy. "Spike!" Their scanners screamed with warnings. What the hell did that human touch? One of them shouted. They rushed toward the source, weapons ready, expecting danger. Jace stepped out of the crack just as they arrived. The crew froze, staring at him in disbelief. The armor covered him completely, but his eyes glowed behind the visor. Power radiated from every inch of him. He looked like a god from an old war story. Then one of them panicked and fired a pulse rifle. The blast hit Jace square in the chest and bounced off like a raindrop. The crew gasped. Jace didn't move. He simply looked at the one who shot. And the armor responded, sending a warning pulse that knocked the weapon from the shooter's hands. No one spoke after that. They just stared. The same crew that mocked him minutes ago now backed away in fear and confusion. He wasn't weak anymore. He wasn't just the human. Something ancient had chosen him, and whatever that armor was, it had just changed everything. The armor clung to Jace like a second skin, smooth and firm, yet light as breath. He stood in silence while the alien crew stared, their eyes wide with confusion and fear. No one dared speak first, not after watching a pulse rifle blast bounce off his chest like it was nothing. The ground beneath him seemed to vibrate slightly, as if the armor itself was alive. And in a way, it was inside the helmet. Soft lines of light danced across his vision, foreign. Symbols translated into simple English, flowing across a transparent display. Biometric match confirmed, cognitive link stabilizing, welcome. Commander of the First Flame. Jace blinked, his lips parted in disbelief. A soft hum rose in his ears, but it wasn't noise, it was thought. The armor spoke not with words, but with feelings, memories, instincts. He saw flashes of a massive battlefield among the stars, of ships falling like rain, of a warrior wearing this armor leading a charge against monstrous invaders. And the warrior had human eyes just like his. Well, what? Are you? Jace whispered, but the armor answered with vision, not sound. It showed him the image of a human empire long gone, wiped out by time and betrayal. This armor was not just a weapon, it was a memory, a commander's spirit bound to metal and code, and now it had awakened again. Because of him, suddenly the ground shook. The alien crew looked around nervously. What is that sound? One of them asked, pulling out a scanner. Another pointed toward the dark sky. Something's coming, he said, his voice trembling. Jace turned and looked upward. The armor had extended his vision, and he could see far beyond normal sight. In the upper atmosphere, ships were approaching, fast and hot. Like predators smelling blood. They found us, Jace muttered. Though he didn't know who they were yet, but the armor did. It sent him new data, old logs, ancient protocols. This armor was a beacon, and its reactivation had sent a signal across the stars. Now, those who once feared it, or wanted to possess it, were coming. The alien leader, a tall violet-scaled warrior named Krelith, finally broke the silence. You activated a relic weapon, human, he growled. Do you realize what you've done? Jace looked at him calmly, his voice deeper and steadier now. No, he said, but I'm starting to understand what it means. He turned his gaze toward the ridge where the old ship lay buried. The armor guided his steps without effort. Beneath the cracked moonrock was more than just a ship. It was a tomb of knowledge, a vault of lost war tech. And now, Jace knew where to go. The armor remembered. The aliens didn't follow him immediately, still too afraid, still unsure if this was the same weak human they mocked. But one curious young scout named Rena moved after him. Where are you going? She asked, hesitating at the edge of the ridge. Jace looked back at her, the blue light from his helmet reflecting in her eyes. Someplace even your scanners couldn't see, he said. And if you want to live, follow me deep inside. The wreck, doors opened before him, ancient systems lighting up as he passed. The armor seemed to interface with everything, unlocking sealed corridors and control panels without effort. Jace found a narrow hallway with walls filled with strange, glowing patterns. At the end, a small round chamber stood silent, but the moment he stepped in, the room awakened. A ring of holograms appeared, showing maps, battle records, and logs of commanders who once wore the same armor. He reached toward one file marked Last Stand, year 7314. As it opened, he saw a human surrounded by enemy fleets, standing atop a burning station and shouting his final command to save Earth. And now, Jace felt the same fire burning in his chest. Behind him, Rena entered the room slowly, watching the lights in awe. I've never seen anything like this, she whispered. Jace turned to her, the voice of the armor now mixing with his own. This isn't just a weapon, he said. This is history, this is blood, this is what they erased from the records. Rena looked shaken. Who are you really? She asked. Jace paused for a moment, then the armor answered through him. I'm the last echo of a forgotten empire. And I'm not alone anymore. Far above, the incoming ships drew closer, their intent clear. They weren't here to study the armor. They were here to destroy it, and anyone who touched it. Jace looked up toward the ceiling, sensing the danger before any scanner could confirm it. The armor shifted slightly, forming sharper edges, thicker plates, preparing for the battle. The time for hiding was over. Now the real war would begin. The alien crew stood frozen outside the wreck, staring at the entrance Jace had disappeared into. None of them dared to go after him. Even the bravest warriors among them hesitated, because the human they once laughed at was no longer just human. He had changed, and something ancient had changed with him. Suddenly, the ground trembled again, overhead. The clouds split as two dark ships entered the moon's atmosphere. Their hulls shimmered with predator-like curves, built not for trade or peace but for hunting. Krelith snarled, raising his plasma axe. "Scavengers," he hissed. "Blood pirates from the drift zones. They must have tracked the armor's signal inside the ancient ship." Jace stood in a circular chamber filled with ghostly lights. The armor pulsed gently around him. Responding to the rising danger, his vision shifted automatically, highlighting enemy ships before they even touched the ground. The suit began feeding him data positions, weapons, weak points. He had never trained for war, but the armor had trained 1,000 commanders before him, and now all their instincts lived inside him. Rena stood near the doorway, watching in silence. She saw something glowing behind his eyes. It wasn't fear or confusion. It was focus, deadly, cold focus. "Jace," she said quietly. "There are too many of them." He turned to her and replied calmly. "Then we make them wish they never came." Outside, the pirate ships landed hard, kicking up clouds of dust and black smoke. Tall, armored figures stepped out, their faces hidden by jagged helmets. One of them roared through a speaker, "Step aside and give us the armor, or die in its shadow." Krelith lifted his axe but said nothing. He looked back nervously toward the wreck, silently hoping the strange human would return. He didn't have to wait long. The wreck's entrance cracked open like a jaw, and from it stepped Jace, slow, steady, silent. His armor was no longer dull and dusty. Now it gleamed like fire trapped in steel. The shape had shifted to match his body perfectly, making him look like a walking storm. The pirates paused, uncertain. This wasn't what they expected. One of them raised a weapon and fired a pulse beam at Jace's chest. The shot connected and fizzled out like a spark hitting a mountain. Jace didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. He took one step forward, then another. The armor's legs moved as if they weighed nothing. Then his arm lifted on its own, forming a glowing blade from liquid metal. Without warning, he lunged forward faster than any pirate could react. The nearest one tried to block him, but Jace spun low, sweeping his feet and slamming the pirate into the ground with bone-shattering force. The others backed away. The alien crew watched in shock as Jace moved through the enemy ranks like wind through fire. He didn't just fight, he danced. Every move flowed into the next. Every strike calculated and clean. The pirates were armed with blades and rifles, but they couldn't touch him. He was too fast, too precise. It was like the armor fought for him. No, with him, they were one, Rena whispered in awe. "He's fighting like an elite warlord." Krelith nodded slowly, his voice shaken. "He's fighting like a ghost of the old wars, after the last pirate fell to the dirt." Groaning and broken, Jace stood still. His armor hissed and retracted the blade. He turned toward the crew, his breathing calm. No blood stained his suit. No scratch marked its surface. Only silence surrounded him. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Krelith stepped forward, bowing his head slightly. "You're no longer just a scavenger," he said. "You're something much more." Jace didn't respond with pride. He only said, "There will be more." And he was right. The armor sent him signals. More ships were coming, not just pirates, but agents of galactic factions that remembered the armor's legacy. Some would come to capture him, others to destroy him, but none would expect a human to stand in their way. The aliens gathered around Jace slowly now, no longer mocking, no longer doubting. They looked at him the way people look at a rising storm, with fear, but also with hope. He was the outcast, the unwanted human who was now their shield, their only chance of survival. Jace looked at them with calm eyes. "If we run, they'll hunt us down," he said. "If we fight smart, we survive. And if we find the rest of what this ship is hiding. He paused. We might win. The armor pulsed once more, revealing a hidden map, buried weapons, ancient command systems, sealed power cores deep within the moon. Jace didn't just have the armor, he had the keys to a forgotten empire. Asterisk, the pirate bodies still lay scattered in the dust, some groaning, others unconscious. But the battle was far from over. Jace stood at the edge of the crater, staring into the sky. The armor had gone quiet for a moment, as if listening. Then came the warning, a soft pulse in his chest. More ships, larger ones, faster ones, closing in. Rena stepped beside him, gripping a plasma blade in shaky hands. What now? She asked, her voice barely holding steady. Jace turned slowly, his eyes glowing behind the visor. They're not here for salvage, he said. They're here for me. Far above the moon, in the cold silence of space, a fleet of black ships raced forward, no banners, no warnings, just death carried on steel wings. They belonged to a faction called the Collectors, a secret group that hunted ancient tech, especially tech connected to the lost human empire. They didn't negotiate. They didn't offer deals. They erased evidence and left no survivors. Krelith watched the scanner flicker with red signals. They've got 3 cruisers and a planetary drop squad, he growled. We can't fight that. Jace looked down at his armor, which responded by projecting a map in midair. It showed the wrecked ship's remaining systems, still buried under layers of dirt and rock. There are defense grids hidden here, he said. We just need to wake them up. But that tech is dead, another alien said. It's thousands of years old. Jace smiled slightly under the helmet. So am I, he said quietly, in a way. Without wasting another second, he moved fast. The armor guided his feet like it had done this before, like every hallway, every control panel, every sealed vault was part of its memory. He led Rena and a few brave crew members into the lower levels of the ancient ship. There, deep beneath the surface, they found a round room sealed by a giant metal door. Jace placed his armored hand on it, and it hissed open like it had been waiting just for him. Inside, glowing blue cores sat in silence, waiting for a voice to command them. The armor lit up, forming circuits across the walls. Jace spoke in a tone he didn't recognize, words he never learned, but somehow understood. The room responded. Towers surging through the floor. Above the surface, the ground shook as old towers rose from the moon rock, their tips glowing red and gold. Ancient defense cannons awakened, moving slowly into position. The alien crew on the surface gasped, backing away as the moon itself seemed to come alive. They had seen battletech, they had even used powerful weapons. But this was a machine built by a civilization that fought wars against gods, and now it served a human again. One of the Collector's ships reached the edge of the atmosphere, preparing to land troops. But before it could lower its shield, a pulse cannon fired from the ground. The shot cut through the ship like a hot blade through paper. It exploded mid-air, raining fire onto the gray rocks below. The aliens cheered, but Jace didn't celebrate. He knew this was only the first wave. He turned to the others, his voice clear and steady. They won't stop, he said. They'll send more, stronger ones, and next time they'll hit harder. Krelith stepped forward, his expression unreadable. We were wrong about you, he said. We called you weak, mocked your blood. But now you lead us like a general. Jace nodded once. I'm not here to lead you, he said. I'm here to survive. But if that means leading, then follow me. He ordered Rena to gather all the working tools and scrap, using alien tech and ancient blueprints from the armor's memory. They began setting traps, spikes hidden beneath sand, false signal beacons, holographic illusions that would confuse incoming scouts. The armor not only gave Jace strength, it gave him knowledge. He saw the battlefield in layers, like a living strategy map inside his mind. Hours passed like seconds, then the sky darkened again, and the real wave arrived. Collector drones descended like insects, scanning and searching. But this time, Jace was ready. He gave one simple command, and the battlefield lit up. Turrets opened fire from the ridges, mines exploded beneath. Invader feet. And Jace, he moved like lightning, striking from shadow to shadow, never seen, only felt. One drone tried to escape, but Jace leapt and dragged it to the ground with a roar that didn't sound human anymore. The aliens who once doubted him now followed his every order without question. He was their shield, their sword, their hope. When the last drone crashed in smoke, silence returned. Everyone stood still, breathing hard, their eyes on the man in the armor. Jace looked up at the stars, knowing more eyes were watching from far away. The armor whispered one final message into his mind before going quiet again. They are not the last, and you are not ready yet. Smoke drifted over the battlefield, mixing with dust and the quiet crackle of cooling metal. Jace stood at the center, his armored body glowing faintly under the twin moons. He didn't move, not yet. He was listening, not with his ears, but with the armor. It whispered the way only something ancient could. It told him where the next threat would come from, how long they had, and what they must do next. The alien crew gathered around slowly, some limping, some still shaking. Not one of them looked down on Jace anymore. They looked to him like soldiers. To a commander, even Krelith, the proud warrior who once mocked the humans, stood in silence, waiting for orders. Jace turned and faced them. The mask of the armor lifted halfway, just enough to reveal his eyes. They weren't the same anymore. There was something burning behind them, not anger, not pride, purpose. This moon was just a grave, he said quietly. Now it's our stronghold. He opened a map in the air using the armor's projection systems. It showed the layout of buried towers, unused power sources, ancient gates deep beneath the surface. We've only unlocked a small piece, he continued. But this ship, this place, it's more than a ruin. It's a command center from a forgotten empire. Rena stepped forward, her voice hesitant but strong. An empire of humans? She asked. Jace nodded. They called it the First Flame, he said. And this armor, it was their symbol of leadership. Only one warrior at a time wore it, the one who led their armies. A hush fell over the group. Jace looked around, then added, but they didn't just fight. They inspired, they united. And now that burden falls on me. He didn't say it with pride. He said it like someone who understood the weight it carried. But the aliens didn't hesitate. They began to move. Quickly and without complaint, setting up defenses, restoring old systems, and building shelters among the ruins. They followed him, not because of fear, but because they believed now. Jace moved through the wreck, guided by the armor, deeper into areas no one had touched in thousands of years. He found a chamber with floating cubes, glowing softly in the dark. Each cube held memories, not just data, but living thoughts from the last commanders. He touched one, and his mind was filled with voices. I led them into the storm. We held the last gate. Do not let the flame go out. Each phrase carved into his spirit. He dropped to one knee, overwhelmed, but the armor steadied him. You are the next torchbearer. It whispered, rise, commander. When he stepped out of that chamber, his posture was different. Even Krelith noticed it. He walks like a warlord now, the alien muttered to himself. Hours later, Jace gathered the crew under a shattered arch. The stars above were bright, but the future felt darker. He raised one hand, and the armor formed a hologram showing a massive enemy fleet gathering near the galactic rim. They weren't pirates or scavengers. They were organized, armed, and coming for the armor itself. For him, we have little time, Jace said, but we have something they don't. We have this place, and we have belief. He paused, then added softly, they see a human wearing old tech, but what I see is the return of something they thought was gone forever. I see a chance to make history remember us. The crew shouted in agreement, lifting their weapons and claws in the air. Jace didn't smile. He only turned and walked to the edge of the ridge, overlooking the moon's valley. Below, Ancient machines began to move under his command, pulling power from the deep core. They were preparing for war, not a battle for survival, but a fight for legacy. That night, Rena approached him while he stood alone near the old war altar. "You didn't ask for any of this," she said. "No," he replied, "but maybe." "It asked for me." She watched the stars with him for a moment, then asked, "Are you afraid?" Jace looked at her and answered quietly, "I was, when they laughed at me. But now, I know who I am." The ancient vault door opened with a deep groan. Metal grinding against time itself, Jace stepped inside alone, his armor glowing faintly in the dark chamber. This place was buried far beneath the moon's surface, deeper than any scanner could reach. Even the alien maps had no record of it. Only the armor knew it was here. Only the armor remembered. The room pulsed with quiet blue light, and in the center stood a strange crystal structure, tall, cracked, humming with forgotten energy. The armor guided Jace forward like a memory reawakening. As he touched the base of the structure, waves of heat rushed through him. The lights around him shifted, and then a voice echoed not from the air, but from inside his bones. "Welcome, successor." It whispered, "You seek the truth of the first flame. Then see it." The crystal lit up, and holograms bloomed like flowers in the air. Jace watched history unfold before his eyes, not the history told in alien books, but the hidden truth that was erased across galaxies. A truth soaked in blood, betrayal, and silence. Long ago, humans had not been the weak species everyone believed. They were explorers, builders, warriors, and leaders. They created a galactic alliance known as the First Flame, uniting planets through strength and honor. Their armies wore living armor, each suit connected to a core of memory and mind. Each commander bonded for life, their soul written into the armor forever. But peace had frightened the other powers. Jealous empires feared the influence of humanity, so they made a secret pact. They struck when the flame was brightest, a coordinated betrayal. A war hidden behind smiles and handshakes. The humans fought with everything they had. But even the strongest fire can be smothered when surrounded by shadows. Jace saw the fall, the burning cities, the broken fleets. The last command issued by the final warlord. "Scatter our armor," the voice had said. "Hide the cores. Let them find only silence until a worthy one returns." The vision ended, and Jace stumbled back, breathless. He understood now. This armor wasn't just a relic, it was a legacy. A cry from the past waiting to be heard again. The voice returned, softer now. "You are not the first to wear me." It said, "But you may be the last. Will you finish what they started?" Jace didn't answer right away. He looked at his hands covered in the armor of a forgotten king. He thought of the aliens who mocked him, now looking to him for leadership. He thought of the fleets gathering beyond the stars, waiting to crush. This fire again, and he thought of Earth, a planet no one spoke of anymore, a home erased from maps. He raised his head slowly and whispered, "I will." The crystal dimmed, and the armor pulsed warmly, like it had been waiting for centuries to hear those words. Suddenly, part of the chamber opened to reveal an armory, shelves of old weapons, tools, and devices untouched by time. Jace stepped forward, choosing carefully. Not out of greed, but with purpose. He selected a wrist-mounted forge drone, a compact shield generator, and a blade forged from dark matter. These were not weapons of destruction. They were instruments of leadership, symbols of war reborn under human hands. Back at the surface, Rena and Krelith waited anxiously when Jace returned. They saw the change in him, not just new tools, not just more armor, but something deeper. He walked like a storm carried by memories. He had become the commander in truth. "There was an empire," Jace said, looking at the crew. "They betrayed it. They buried it, but they couldn't kill it." Krelith tilted his head. "So what happens now?" Jace looked up at the sky, where enemy scouts began to reappear as glowing dots. "What happens now," he said slowly, "is that we light the flame again." The sky above the moon turned red as the enemy fleet arrived. Dozens of ships shaped like jagged blades blocked the stars. They didn't send warnings, didn't speak, didn't wait. They opened fire instantly, beams of heat and thunder crashing down like divine punishment. But this time, Jace was not running, he was ready. The alien crew watched in silence as Jace stood on the ridge, arms folded behind his back. He didn't flinch when the ground shook. He didn't blink when the explosions tore through the dust, because the armor had already shown him this moment. And he had already chosen how it would end. "Activate all defense nodes," Jace said calmly. Lights across the ruins blinked to life. Towers rose, cannons turned, and hidden drones emerged from beneath the sand. It was no longer a graveyard, it was a fortress. Enemy drop pods fell like meteorites, spraying dirt and fire. Dozens of armored soldiers poured out silent, focused, ruthless. They expected fear, retreat, surrender. What they got instead was thunder. Jace jumped from the ridge like a falling star. His armor shifted mid-air, forming wings of energy that slowed his descent. He landed hard, cracking the ground beneath him. Then, he moved fast, brutal, unstoppable, the dark matter. Blades spun in his hand like lightning chained to his will. Every strike hit with perfect force, not just strength but purpose, not just war but vengeance. Rena fought beside him, her blade glowing. She wasn't the same scout from before. Now she moved like a warrior reborn. Krelith led a squad of aliens behind them, roaring as he struck with plasma fury. They weren't following Jace out of fear anymore. They were fighting with him because now they believed in something more than survival. They believed in him. The enemy fell back, confused. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. They had maps that said the moon was dead. They had data saying humans were weak. But this human had turned a ruin into a weapon, a joke into a legend. From orbit, the enemy flagship charged its main cannon, a weapon strong enough to vaporize cities. Jace saw it light up from the valley floor. The armor reacted instantly, pulsing energy into the old command post nearby. Jace sprinted toward it, the ground shattering under his steps. He reached the console just as the cannon fired. He didn't try to block it. He redirected it. The ancient technology caught the beam in midair, bending it like light through a lens. Then it reflected it back twice as strong. The enemy flagship didn't have time to react. It exploded in silence, torn in half before it even understood what happened. The sky lit up with fire, and the rest of the enemy fleet turned to flee. But Jace didn't chase them. He just stood there, watching. He raised his arm, and the armor sent a signal, a message, broadcast across multiple channels, across borders, across space. The voice that followed wasn't just Jace. It was the armor, the memory, the fire of the first flame, speaking through him. "You erased our name from your histories. You called us extinct, broken, forgotten. But we are human, and we remember. We do not beg. We do not kneel. We rise, and now we rise again," the message echoed across the galaxy. To some, it brought panic, to others hope. But to all, it said one thing clearly. Humanity was back when the dust cleared and silence returned. The alien crew gathered around Jace. He removed his helmet, letting the cold moonlight touch his face. He was no longer the boy they had mocked. He was the flame they had forgotten. Krelith stepped forward and knelt, not out of weakness but respect. "Commander," he said. "What now?" Jace looked to the stars. "There are others like me out there," he said. "Others who still believe. We will find them, and we will remind this galaxy why they once feared the name human." He turned and walked slowly across the battlefield. The armor faded back into its resting state. But everyone knew it was still awake. Always watching, always ready, because legends never die. They wait for the right one to rise again, and this time, the last laugh belonged to humanity.